Story 1. Betrayed. My husband had an affair with his secretary, left me in heart-wrenching pain. Why does betrayal hurt so much? So my husband and I have been married for 5 years. Last week, he went on a business trip along with his secretary. Yesterday, I woke up in the middle of the night because I was feeling a little bit thirsty. Then I saw my husband, with his shirt untidy, his hair messy, and kiss marks all over his neck and even on the collar of his shirt. When he saw that I was awake, he immediately started saying all sorts of excuses. Saying it was just a mistake, that she means nothing, etc. I asked him why he did this and who he did it with. Then he said that he did it with his secretary, but it was all completely physical, and that he didn't feel any love towards her. He said this as if it would justify his actions. Then I repeated my question, asking why he did it, and he simply said that he couldn't resist her, and that his lust got the better of him. He kept on saying he loved me, she didn't matter to him, it was all just physical, and kept begging me not to leave him. He said that it would be too embarrassing for him to tell his family and friends that he's getting divorced. I was baffled by this, on how he still only thought of himself. He told me that this will never happen again, and that he will stay loyal. Yet, I knew that if I hadn't caught him, he'd still have intimacy with his secretary. I just got up at that point, and packed my bags, and asked my best friend to pick me up. My husband kept trying to stop me, but I kept resisting. Eventually, my best friend arrived and I am currently staying at her home. I am thinking of divorcing my husband, but my mother and some relatives are saying I'm being too rash on this decision. What should I do about this? Am I really being too rash? Update. So a few things have happened since then. First off, I would like to thank you all for your supportive and kind replies. I really appreciate it. Now on to the update. I have made the decision to get a divorce, and we are currently under divorce process. I have blocked some of my relatives that had told me I was being too rash, so now I am in no contact with them. I also gave my mom an ultimatum to either support my decision on getting a divorce and stop pressuring me into giving my husband another chance, or I would cut contact. Since then, she had stopped bothering me about giving my husband a second chance. I am still temporarily staying with my best friend as I'm still working on saving enough money to buy myself an apartment. My soon-to-be ex-husband is now apparently living with his secretary at our home, and she has apparently started renovating the place to her own liking. The last time I went there was to get some of my stuff. I noticed that the wallpapers were changed, and furniture too. I originally designed the house to have a Victorian feel to it, and it was now changed into a modern house. Story 2. AITA for cutting off mother in midlife crisis who cheated. My dad is the hardest working person I know and incredibly considerate. He deeply loves my mother. Most of their arguments occur when she makes decisions that should be done as a partnership. After these fights, she holds grudges for a long time. Recently, my mother's stepdad died, and her boss, who she considered a father figure, also passed away within a week. While planning the funeral, she and her family drank heavily. A huge fight erupted at a family gathering. My mother was intoxicated and became aggressive. I had to separate them, and my grandmother got pushed to the ground in the chaos. My mother then drunkenly drove away to confront her brother. The next day, my dad attended the funeral as he took that day off work. He and my mother agreed to leave the after party by 6 p.m., but when the time came she insisted we stay longer. By 10 p.m., we had to leave since we had early obligations the next day. Eventually, she agreed to come home, and we had a pleasant conversation during the drive. After the funeral, my mom fell into a midlife crisis. She started drinking daily to cope and became obsessed with an app called Bigo, where she received a lot of attention. Alcohol and online validation changed her drastically. She stopped taking care of herself and often ignored our family and stopped coming into work. One night, my dad caught her flirting with someone during a live stream, and he was understandably upset. She laughed and said she was divorcing him live while her live stream peers laughed and insulted him, which broke his heart. The following day, they reconciled, but our family was still worried. While they were out, I unlocked her phone and saw the romantic messages with her and another. Her drinking worsened, and her online behavior became concerning. My dad tried to join her live stream trying to vibe with her, but she quickly hit him, claiming he was embarrassing. She continued giving money to strangers on Bigo. Eventually, she got into an argument with my dad during a stream, admitting to having an affair as a joke, laughing while my dad cried. Me and my sister joined her live as a guest and said, "Hi Mom," while we were out. She then got angry and ended her life and we exposed her double life. When we came home she was packing all her things. She moved to Australia to live with her sister and dad but continued drinking heavily and living and ignoring my dad's attempts to reach out. Right now she's officially together with a guy in Australia. We now know this is why she was in such a rush to go to Australia. Not only does my dad feel betrayed, but my little sister and I feel like she chose this guy and social media lifestyle over us. Now, I feel the need to cut her off. I feel as if she had addictive attitudes over the years she never got help for. She's forced my dad to be a single father, and it has been difficult. Especially with my sister's recent surgery where she is pretty much blind, while I study and he works. So, AITA for cutting her off? She calls every 2 weeks, and they're very vague, and sometimes she's trying to make us go against our father. Like when she called us a few days after my sister's surgery and made a comment about our father not telling her about it, and that he's trying to take us away from her. Afterwards we told our dad, and he just frowned in silence, grabbed his phone and showed us 11 days of him messaging her, calling her about it, and she ignored it all. I'm not surprised. Even our messages she never looks at because she's always live streaming anyways. Edit. I would like to thank you everyone for your advice. I have read over and over every single one comment. I really appreciate everybody's words more than you know. Both sides of my family are addicts, alcoholics, so I didn't have anyone to come to besides my parents. I would only talk to ChatGPT about problems and it wasn't helpful. You all have given me something an AI cannot do, and that's human feeling and compassion you all have had for me. Thank you Reddit, not a bigo ed. Where in this did I promote that app? All I did was say the app she's addicted to. I am a newer person to Reddit, but I don't understand how this is being viewed as an ad. Seriously. Even the word bigo gets me agitated. I think people believe this is fake, which is pretty comforting as my mother's family keeps downplaying the situation and they believe it isn't that bad for us, sister, dad and I. So if you guys think it's unbelievable, it is actually a horrible thing. A few important things I thought to add at the top of my head. 1. I forgot to mention the relevance of the after party of the funeral and the detail where we asked to go home. This was my sister and I trying to leave. My father barely had a say and just told my mother, "It's getting late." By this time it was way past the agreed time of 6 p.m. Her reaction to that was normal at the time and we had a nice chat on our way home. To the present time, my mother has defended all her toxic behaviors because my father said it was getting late that night. That he took her away from her family, even though we had a set time to leave, and offered for us to go and stay at her relative's Airbnb. This was not up for discussion. I was a temp at my job and they could legally fire me for one absence, and my sister had school the next day. The place this funeral and after party took place was 2 hours away from our home. Anyways, she actually justified everything she has done because my father said it was getting late and that he stole her away from her family. I understand it was her stepdad's funeral after the party and we had a lot of empathy, but we all arranged 6 p.m. as the time, not just one person. I had work at 5 a.m. the next day, a 2-hour journey away, and my sister had school. We even gave her the option of us going and her staying at her cousin's Airbnb, as they were staying for a couple more days, but she declined and wanted us to wait for her. Something I can't understand is why she thought it was ripping her away from her family. It's not like they live far away, they live down the road from us. Her using his small comment against him, blaming him for all of this, just seemed like her finding any reason to feel like she can justify herself for the actions she's committed and not feel guilty. My father barely even pushed the idea of leaving the after party. It was my sister and I, so she might as well hate the whole lot of us. 2. Yes, we have tried to get her help in every single possible way when it started out and progressed. Even got a plane ticket for her father from another country to see if he can help. He ended up encouraging it and justified everything. A little bit of background on my grandfather is that he's never had a long-term relationship, and was a deadbeat father back then, so I believe his point of view is flawed. He believes my father shouldn't be upset about her leaving or cheating, that his money is my mother's too and she can give it out to whoever she wants, that my father shouldn't charge my mother child support because she's depressed, that my alcoholic mother should have custody of us because a child needs their mother, etc. 3. My father would accept my mother back in a heartbeat. He forgave her the moment he found out she's cheating, hoping they can work things out, and she knows this but doesn't care and hasn't shown a single sign of remorse for anyone for. She's given over thousands of dollars away to strangers. 5. Another thing she said to excuse the cheating specifically, was that my father wouldn't tell her about the drama between his drug addict brother and his father. My father's brother would use, steal, etc. from his dad. It's a topic that really upsets my dad because it has been going on for too long, but there's also other details. Anyways, my mother said that him not speaking up about his family drama and not letting her intervene was having a double life, and therefore is the equivalent of her getting to have a double life and justification of her cheating. I knew my father was just protecting my mother, as I have heard in the past that she will confront the brother straight on, which is exactly what my dad wants to avoid and wants to handle it himself. 6. Unfortunately, we are struggling right now. She said she had a job lined up in Australia to help her kids, but she's definitely lied about that. So living on just my dad's income has been difficult, and we have been surviving on noodles, expired yogurt, and anything our church offers. Story 3. AITA for getting upset over my birthday cake. This year, I spent my 34th birthday with my husband's, also 34 family in South Asia. This is going to be quite long, so bear with me. For context, a few months before our trip, my brother-in-law, we'll call him Jay, 23, had an argument with his girlfriend over the phone while staying at our house. Jay had been texting all night, but I wasn't aware of this the next morning when I came downstairs. Jay had left his phone in another room while sleeping on the sofa. His phone kept ringing, but I ignored it, knowing it was his girlfriend. Eventually, Jay's girlfriend called my phone, asking to speak to him because she couldn't reach him. I told her Jay was sleeping and that he would call her when he woke up, but she insisted it was urgent. So, I gave the phone to Jay. His girlfriend shouted at him and then hung up. It turned out she just wanted to wake him up to continue their argument. Afterwards, Jay asked for my opinion about why she would do that. I told him that she was likely frustrated because she couldn't get hold of him and was upset that, from her perspective, he had all the power because he was sleeping while she still wanted to argue. It seemed like she called to wake him up, only to hang up after getting his attention, which shows a power imbalance. Jay disagreed with me and said I had the wrong idea about her. My husband agreed with my assessment but didn't say anything at the time. For further context, Jay's girlfriend cheated on him early in their relationship and is manipulative. After that, Jay didn't really bring it up again, and we just went about our day. Once Jay went home after the weekend, he didn't come back to stay with us and also hadn't spoken to me since. I asked my husband if Jay was upset with me because of what I said. My husband told me that Jay didn't like my opinion, said I didn't know what I was talking about, and then went on to criticize my entire career. I work with children. I was upset, but I didn't bring it up, thinking maybe I had overstepped by giving my opinion. My husband reassured me, saying Jay hadn't been back to stay with us because he's busy at university, and he doesn't seem to be holding on to anything from that conversation. Maybe 2 months after the argument, my family and I flew to stay with my husband's parents for 4 weeks. We arrived a week before Jay. When he arrived, Jay acted like his usual friendly, warm self. Week 2 went by with no issues, and during week 3, Jay's girlfriend joined us at the house. Everything was going well. The day before my birthday, I started to feel unwell and ended up in the hospital, needing antibiotics. My in-laws had planned a special day for me, including a meal out, but we had to postpone it. About 4 or 5 days later, we finally celebrated. We went out to a lovely restaurant, and I felt really overwhelmed with love and super appreciative. Afterward, we went to pick up my birthday cake, which had been specially made. When we got to the cake shop, my husband mentioned that Jay was in charge of sorting out the cake. They brought it over and uncovered it, and it had a figure of me with children holding a banner that said power imbalance. I tried not to get upset in front of my in-laws, but I felt hurt. Once we got back in the car, I started to cry, trying to hide it, but my mother and father-in-law noticed. They knew about what had happened 2 months prior and told me I was wrong to get upset, accusing me of being spoiled and not appreciating what they'd done. They insisted that Jay only meant it as a joke. But to me, it felt spiteful and not funny. I was upset that Jay thought it was okay to put that on the cake in front of everyone. Considering we hadn't spoken about it since. When we got home, my in-laws shouted at me, saying I was wrong for getting upset and crying over a joke. I ran into the bedroom and couldn't stop crying, confused about how everything had blown up so badly. After things calmed down, my husband and I sat with his parents, Jay, and Jay's girlfriend to talk. They all said they don't know how to act around me because I can't take a joke and needed time to think about things. I explained why I was hurt, and Jay got defensive, saying he's not spiteful and thought I'd find it funny. I felt embarrassed, especially in front of his girlfriend. The next day, I sat with my husband and Jay. Even though I didn't feel like apologizing, I did because everything felt awkward, and I wanted it to go away. Jay apologized too. But his parents still wouldn't speak to me, saying they were hurt because they'd tried to plan a nice day for me, and it felt like it got thrown in their faces. I apologized to them again, saying I appreciated everything they'd done, including the cake, and I didn't mean to upset them. We still had a week left at their house, and during that time, they didn't speak to me at all. I apologized 3 times. I thought maybe things would calm down once we left, but it's been 6 months, and my in-laws still won't speak to me. The reason I'm writing this now is that my husband told me today that during a call with his mom, they talk every other day, she referred to me by my name rather than your wife, which feels like a start. We have a family group chat, but only my husband responds to my messages. I don't know what else to do. AITA for how I reacted to the cake. Even if I was, I don't feel like this level of response is necessary. Story 4. AITH for being uncomfortable with my boyfriend's female friend. So I'm going to start off by saying that myself, F32, and my boyfriend, M32, have been together for 5 years. I am currently 29 weeks pregnant FYI. Also, we both have always had opposite sex friends. His friends are 90% female and mine 90% male. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm overthinking with my hormonal pregnant brain. When I was 12 to 14 weeks pregnant, my boyfriend, Luis, was very attached to my hip. This is his first kid and my second. He rarely made time for friends because I was pregnant and staying by my side. I expressed to Luis I wanted him to go out with friends and enjoy the next 5 to 6 months because once the baby is born we are both gonna have a lot on our plate and he wouldn't be able to go out as much with our opposite schedules, so we don't have to pay for daycare or babysitter. He kinda started to branch out to friends but was still very attentive at home. About 3 months ago he mentioned he reconnected with a female friend named Brittany from high school. He told me all about her and mentioned himself. Brittany and one of his guy friends were going to go out to the racetracks this coming weekend. I didn't think anything of it, I was just glad he was making an allowance to go with his friends. During the night he would text me off and on while I was at work. I work night shifts. I got home at midnight and he pulled in maybe 5 minutes before me. He had a blast but said his guy friend canceled last minute so it was just him and Brittany that went. It didn't necessarily bother me, I just found it odd that he didn't say anything during the course of us texting throughout the night. I shrugged it off and let him tell me about the night he had, what they talked about, her dating life, yes she is single, etc. Well, the next 2 months he seemed to text her a lot throughout the day, when he would pick up his phone with a smile while texting. Almost like a love-stuck puppy. I figured since I was pregnant I would ignore the knots in my stomach because it was probably nothing. He never changed his routines and as far as I know they only hang out alone that one time. But he talked about her a lot. We would be at the dinner table talking about a random subject with his sisters and casually would bring up what Brittany thought and her opinions. His sister would look at him strangely and look back at me with the same look. I would shrug my shoulders because it's not my place to tell him who he can talk to even though it started to bother me more with how much he talked about her. He mentioned how she is like a tomboy and how we would get along. So after a month of them texting, he invited her over to dinner for us to meet. Luis's sisters also joined us for dinner. She seemed nice and asked about my pregnancy and job. But other than small talk with me, she mostly talked to him the whole night. When I served dinner, about 10 minutes into everyone eating, he leaned very close to her and said, "Is this better than sex or what?" I looked up from my plate and saw her looking at me with a blush, embarrassed face. One of Luis's sisters asked if he said sex or six in a serious tone. He kinda moved away from Brittany and said six. He stayed quiet while we finished our meals. He also invited her to our baby shower a few weeks later, while she was dressed to the tens, makeup, short shorts, crop top and followed him everywhere. Not once did she talk to me and his attention was completely on her the whole time. I felt very uncomfortable. Why didn't I speak up then? I didn't want to seem overbearing or jealous, I guess. Jump forward, he still was texting her every day and continued to talk about her a lot, the kind of guy she was looking for, and he was kind of putting himself in that category, which was pissing me off. But 2 weeks ago he asked how I would feel if he took a solo trip to Mexico with Brittany before the baby was born. Said he didn't want to get into trouble with me, so he wanted to ask my opinion first. My answer was instantly absolutely not. He understood, but I could tell he was disappointed with my answer. I ended up leaving my sisters after this conversation and broke down with my sister. Telling her everything above? She told me I needed to talk to him because I wasn't acting crazy about being jealous and how a lot of these things are huge red flags that something could be going on that I'm not aware of. So the next day I sat him down and told him I wasn't sure if these are my pregnancy hormones going crazy, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable with the kind of relationship he is having with Brittany. He started by saying there was no relationship between them, so I backtracked and said friendship, and explained what I was seeing on my side of things and how they were making me uncomfortable. He just shut down and looked like he was gonna cry at any second when I finished my rant. I also told him I wasn't going to ask him to stop talking to her or try to control who he is friends with. He sat down next to me and was silent for a minute, explaining he felt nothing for her and he didn't think Brittany would try to put herself between us, how she is just a really good friend that pops up randomly and disappears again. I had nothing to say after that because I felt like he was defending her and not putting my feelings or mind at ease. We sat there for another 5 minutes in silence. He got up and gave me a long hug and rubbed my back. Conversation ended. I don't think anything was resolved besides getting it off my chest about how I was feeling. A week after our talk he mentioned how she reached out, asking why he has been distant with her. He made up some bullshit excuse and left it at that. But 2 nights ago, so about a week and a half after the distance talk, he said he was talking to her again, and I appreciate him being open and honest. But he explained he wanted me to give her one more chance and invite her to the house for us to all hang out again. I told Luis I needed time to think about it. I'm not sure how I feel about this or if it's a good idea. So I'm asking Reddit if this is something I need to worry about or if I should give his friend a shot at being around again. I feel so on the fence about it, because on my side of things it looks fishy and borderline emotional affair that could start. So AITA? Story 5. AITA for not telling my BF about the previous affair with his stepbrother. Took me a while to figure out a descriptive title. I met Kurt around 2 years ago. He was very charming, sophisticated, awesome, rich, etc. I didn't even know that was a thing back then, but he did love bomb me, and told me he was in the process of divorcing his wife. I fell in love and started a relationship with him which he wanted to keep secret until the divorce was finalized. This divorce process was taking a long time, and I wanted to meet my future family-in-law and get close to them, so I used the opportunity and swapped a job to one which would put me into daily contact with Kurt's mom, stepbrother and stepsister. This is when I found out I already knew Kurt's step-siblings back from high school. I grew close to them, we were hanging out almost daily. Kurt wasn't happy about this. Also during this last summer through them I found out Kurt is a bit of a psycho. Almost everything Kurt said was a lie. Guy is basically a huge scammer, leading double or triple lives, all of which are fake. Isn't getting a divorce, lying about his history, life, education, job, everything? Scamming multiple women at the same time. But also stuff like spending time in jail due to scamming an old lady with dementia to steal her paychecks. Tinder swindler seems like a decent guy in comparison to this thing. But also what happened is, I got to know Dario, Kurt's stepbrother. Dario is a better person than the one Kurt pretends to be. And a really genuine, honest person at that. I can't really describe Dario in words except, everyone loves him. If you get to know him you would want this guy to be your best friend. I became very close friends with Dario, and never tried to go beyond that because Dario can pick women. I would never assume he would want to be with me. Yet Dario organically grew the relationship to a point when it felt we already are a couple, then asked me to be his girlfriend, which really felt like a pro form at that time. I didn't tell Dario anything about my relationship with Kurt. Now I didn't break up with Kurt simply because I felt like there was no relationship to break up. So I just ghosted. Ignored him thinking he would keep his mouth shut because otherwise he would be admitting to cheating on his wife. And I was horribly wrong. I think in this situation Kurt, an egomaniac, saw an opportunity to flex on his stepbrother, so he boasted to their mom about me being his mistress for 2 years, chasing after him, having sex on demand. While in his words Dario was chasing after me and had to jump through the hoops to get some sex. Which is a very twisted version of the truth, but mom told. Dario never showed any sign of being hurt, but I'm guessing due to his pride he wouldn't allow showing it. He just broke up our relationship saying we don't share the same social values and norms. I'm guessing the most polite way to call someone trash, I guess. This has been one of the rare cases where I truly feel in the morally gray area. On one hand there is the right to keep my sexual relationship private. On the other hand his right to know what he is getting himself into. So, am I the asshole for keeping the relationship with Kurt a secret? You be the judges. Story 6. My roommates are having an affair. I moved to a new place after leaving a shithole. After moving in I noticed some of my stuff in my locked room would move around. At first I just thought I was tired, but later I got 2 security cameras and set them up in my room. I found out that 2 of my roommates were breaking in, used a key, to have sex in my room, and when they were done, the women would snoop around my stuff. Disgusting, I know. The man also has a kid with his girlfriend and they live in the master bedroom together. I copied the video to Google Drive and changed my locks. First off, a lot of people asked me to share the video. I know that this is the internet, but really? No, I'm not doing that. Also revenge sex with the man, his girlfriend or the affair women, that is not happening. This is not some sort of porno or daytime drama. The lock change was noticed right away. I used the excuse that the key broke and since it was my fault I replaced the lock. That worked for a few days, then the affair man asked for the key to check my smoke alarm. Told him I did it and it's fine. A few more pathetic tries to get the key from me, until he sent his girlfriend over, not to affair women. Her mother actually owns the house, and she is the one who collects the rent. I knew it was risky since I still haven't lined up another place to move to, but I showed her the video. Turns out he is a serial cheater, and was caught months ago having sex with the women who used to live in my room. Not only that, he has been caught with a different woman at least once a year since their kid was born. The affair guy goes visiting some friends for a few days. Affair woman was told that she has to move out in 2 months. Affair women's roommate goes apeshit on me. Threats, and she keyed my car, she told me, but I can't prove it, so I moved one of the cameras to the windows pointing at my car. Affair guy comes back after a bit more than a week. Don't talk to me at all. Things get worse for me throughout the house. My food gets tampered with or destroyed, so I keep it all in my room. He attempts to block my truck in the driveway, but I just drive on the grass, and some other grade school level BS. Fed up, I contacted the house owner. The mother of the girlfriend. A lot of stuff happens, but basically we agree to buy out my lease and pay me back for all the damages. In exchange I don't involve the police, and I leave without problems by November 1st, 2024, and I get $1,000 to cover everything damaged plus no rent for the last 2 months. Paperwork is signed and a video is taken just to be safe. I found a new place in early October thanks to another job I did cleaning up after Helene. It cost a bit more, but much more room. I sold the fridge and chest freezer that I scavenged and had set up in the garage to an affair guy for another $500 before I left. Yes, he is still there. Affair women had moved out late July and I haven't seen her since. Her crazy roommate was still living there when I moved out in October. Girlfriend has made several attempts to contact me to see if I was willing to work with her on several things. I have never contacted her back. Edit. I used to bring back a ton of free stuff that I find in the trash. Me and girlfriend made a decent amount of money reselling this stuff on Facebook, eBay, Craigslist, not to mention the free food, toys, and other things that are still in use around the house. No sex is involved. Story 7, years later and the pain never goes away. I, male, 47, and have been separated and working toward divorce since finding out all the truth and it's all disgusting. Married after dating for 5 years and instant dead bedroom. She got drunk at our wedding, threw up and passed out in a limo on way home. Fun night for me alone. Dead bedroom started before the wedding, almost as soon as we moved in together and I proposed. After 7 years of being ignored completely in all ways, I cheat with a Yoanens I met on Ashley Madison and feel guilty immediately. Soon after I confessed to my wife because I couldn't handle the guilt and asked her at that time if she had ever cheated and she swore she had not. She didn't seem bothered by my admission. We had 1 kid at the time and during her maternity leave, I had suspected something was wrong, fought with her about it, but never pursued it enough. Another kid soon arrived. A few years ago after losing my job and attempting to figure out my life, I wanted to work on this miserable marriage or finally end it and find happiness elsewhere. I finally got my wife to admit she had cheated but wouldn't give any details and over the next couple of months I had to drag anything out of her but it was all lies including the name. I was able to find the old phone records because she had a company phone from my business and got the number and name 15 years later. I was able to finally find the other man's wife and messaged her to find out she had known about the affair and called my wife to end it. She had my office phone but never contacted me because she felt it wasn't her business. WTF? My ex's timelines don't match up and I realize she was cheating around our oldest birth. I confront her and get more lies. I quickly get a home DNA test and wait for the results. My B-day is during the waiting period and she uses that day to admit that she would trade blowjobs for weed with co-workers. She went to a party with her friend one night, supposedly got drugged, even though she was fine to drive home immediately and remembers the drive and coming home. And had sex with someone at party but she doesn't remember any of it. She got pregnant that night. So the wife that couldn't show my affection of any kind our entire committed relationship and never gave me oral was blowing coworkers for weed, got knocked up by a random guy, and as soon as she got pregnant proceeded to have a 2-year affair with another coworker. After that affair ended, she went and found a new coworker to trade sex for weed with. All this over a long period of time. I've been left to deal with all of this alone as 3 years of therapy got me nowhere. I can't admit any of this to friends even though they see me struggling. Professionally I was doing well and have been struggling there this year as well. I have to hide this truth from my daughter because I care for her very much and I spent a lot of time taking care of her when she was little. The few people that know, including the therapist, all say, "Will, she's your daughter because you loved her son, you've always been there for her," but they don't seem to feel this distraction of my heart that I cannot stop feeling. All these truths have not just mentally broken me, but physically as well. I feel the darkness of depression overtaking me more and more as the time goes on without any chance of breaking through this cloud of shit. Now knowing the truth that I was being used and never was loved or even cared for by the person I committed my life to. My family has been a great help but they can't truly feel what I feel. Dating sucks because I run as soon as red flags appear. Either women want to take it slow and won't commit, lie about their intentions or are using you until they find something better, or if lucky enough to find a ONS, They are only putting out because they want to rope you into their nightmare. Sorry, this is Sue Long. I was having a really bad day as the anniversary is coming up and I'm in rough shape. Has anyone had similar lies and deceits and managed to get over it and adjust to normal life? Story 8. I feel like I'm never going to heal. I am currently 24 years old. I have been surrounded by betrayal and infidelity since I was a very young child. My dad cheated on my mom throughout their entire 15 years together. He cheated on her with multiple people, but one of them was his new partner that he's with to this day. When I was around 7 years old and my parents were divorced, and he was already dating this new woman, I found his burner phone between his clothes. I read a bunch of texts with other women, some of them inappropriate. I also found a dating site with chats on his computer. My mom has always been affected by the cheating and I've always noticed. Years after she got with another man. This other man cheated on her too, and gave her HPV. I had to be with my mom while she had surgery because the HPV strand was becoming cancerous. I saw her completely crushed by this. At 15, I got into my first ever relationship. I'm always hesitant to call it abusive because we were both 15 and so I feel like it's less serious. But for the sake of simplicity, it was abusive physically, emotionally and sexually. This guy cheated on me with 8 people that I know of. I keep finding people to this day. One was his ex that I actually thought good things about because she always acted nice towards me. 4 of those girls were friends of mine or girls that I had a civil relationship with but never told me. 2 were random girls. The last one was a girl that he had a whole other parallel relationship with throughout the 2 years that we were together. He hid me from everyone in his life and would even make me leave his house and go to school. We went to the same one, 10 minutes earlier than him so people wouldn't see us together. But with this other girl, he posted pictures with her, took her on dates, introduced her to his family, all the things he never did with me. I felt like loving me was shameful. All the times he told me he was going to his brother's he was with her. For the entire 2 years. He would also ask girls for his social status in front of me, would tell me that his ex was the love of his life, he was 16. And would compare me to other girls, constantly telling me how much hotter than me they were. A few years later I dated another guy. Lasted 4 months only, but we had the talk about being exclusive. He had a playful relationship with a friend of both of us that he reassured me was completely platonic. I believed him. Around the 4-month mark he told me that he had developed feelings for another girlfriend of mine and went on to date her. I was glad that he told me before cheating on me. Turns out, he did cheat on me, but with that first girl we both had in common. So he cheated and left me for someone else, both friends of mine, and I'm sure he cheated with the second girl too. My third relationship with this girl, I'm bi. She never actually cheated, but same story time again. She said that she had developed feelings for someone else and left me to be with this person. My stepsister also once came to my house crying and confessed to me in explicit detail about her cheating on his BF of 8 years for the past 3 years and begged me to cover up for her. I haven't talked to her since. I feel completely hopeless. I feel like there has to be something wrong with me. Everyone replaced me. I was always surrounded by disrespect. I don't know how to stop feeling like this. I don't want to say I'm traumatized because it's such a serious word, but I'm terrified of moving on with my life only to end up in the same patterns again. I will start therapy soon because I've never talked to anyone about this before, only here on Reddit. I don't know what I'm really looking for here, maybe advice on how to move on, maybe just not feeling alone, whatever it is, I just want it to stop hurting. Story 9. I exposed my wife's affair to her family in a very public way. I really need to know if I'm the asshole here. I, male, 37, have been married to my wife, female, 35, for 10 years. We have 2 beautiful children, and our life seems perfect. But a few months ago, I noticed changes in her behavior. She was often absent, suddenly had many work meetings, and became very secretive with her phone. I always had full trust in her, but the nagging feeling that something was wrong wouldn't go away. So I started looking for answers. At first, I voiced my concerns, but she brushed them off and called me paranoid. Eventually, I decided to hire a private investigator, which wasn't easy because I felt terrible doing it. But the results he delivered confirmed my worst fears. She was having an affair. My world collapsed. After all the years of trust and love, I felt betrayed and humiliated. But instead of acting impulsively, I decided to plan everything carefully. I didn't just want revenge, I wanted her to understand what she had done. Recently, a big family gathering was planned at our house, and I knew this would be my opportunity. While we were planning the details of the gathering, I made sure all her closest relatives would come. Her parents, her siblings, and a few close friends were invited. I was determined to carry out my plan without anyone suspecting anything. On the day of the gathering, My wife said she would be late because of an urgent meeting. Of course, I knew this was a lie and that she would use this meeting to see her lover. So I arranged for the family to gather at our house before she arrived. Once everyone was there, I pretended to call my wife to ask when she would arrive. Instead, I FaceTimed her and projected the call onto our big living room TV. Naturally, she didn't answer, so I activated the detective's camera I had installed in the hotel room where she was meeting. The screen flickered and clearly showed my wife in a very compromising moment with her lover. The room was tense with silence. Everyone stared at the screen, incredulous and shocked. Then chaos erupted. Her mother started crying, her father yelled at her through the phone, and her siblings either looked at the floor or argued heatedly amongst themselves. I just stood there, watching the scene unfold, while my wife tried to end the call. It was surreal and painful, but also a strange satisfaction in bringing the truth to light. My wife eventually came home, but the atmosphere was icy. We had a long and painful conversation where she cried and apologized, but I knew it wasn't enough. Her betrayal had destroyed not only me but our whole family. The last few days have been a nightmare. Our children don't know exactly what happened, but they sense that something is wrong. Her parents are devastated and have temporarily cut contact with her. Some of her siblings have taken my side, while others are trying to excuse or at least understand her behavior. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I did the right thing. Was it too cruel to expose her in this way? Should I have handled it more discreetly? I know there could have been another way, but at that moment, it felt like this was the only way to make her feel the pain she caused. Story 10. My dad slept with my girlfriend and now I am having an affair with his wife. I, male, 34, do not have a close relationship with my father, 57, at all. To understand this, I want to give some background information. My mom died when I was 7 years old. Since then my dad has been taking care of me. We were very close. My dad never dated anyone because he didn't want me to have a stepmother. When I turned 18 I started pushing dad to date. My dad was handsome and would often get noticed by women, so I thought it would be better for him, but he still remained single. I guess he was just used to it. When I was 19 I started dating this girl named Maya, 33 now. She was a very sweet, beautiful and smart girl. I fell in love with her almost instantly. I always knew she was a bit materialistic. I ignored that. I mean, people are a bit materialistic, it is just human nature. I always knew she and I would get married one day and have kids of our own. I used to picture us getting older together. We dated for 6 years until one day her dad passed away in a car accident. Her mother lived in a different state, so she had no one. She moved in with me and my dad. She quit her job shortly after because she had a mental breakdown. My dad was kind enough to let her stay with me. I noticed that my father and Maya were getting closer. I thought that was because she and my dad bonded over and dad was just being there for her as her father. But things started to change. Maya said she got a new job and was busy. She would often come late at night. Sometimes I would smell cologne from her body, but I always gave her the benefit of the doubt. She started to become very secretive with her phone. She and my dad would often gossip and ignore me. So I went to dad to ask him if he noticed something had changed about my girlfriend. My dad would just brush it off and tell me I am dreaming. At one point I couldn't take it enough. I had to know the truth. So when she was asleep I took her phone and unlocked it with her thumb. What I was just shattered to my core. There were thousands of messages between her and my father. They were flirting and sexting. There was also a video of her sucking him off. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to grab a knife from the kitchen and end both of them. But somehow I didn't. I couldn't sleep the whole day. My own dad was betraying me. He knew how much I loved her. He even went to shop for diamond rings for me a few days ago. I took some time off work and went to see a friend of mine, Mike. I told him everything. He and I hatched a plan that I would expose both of them. So for a few weeks I pretended that everything was fine between us. I decided to just quietly exit instead of creating a scene. I would be giving them what they wanted. I got a job in a different town and packed just my essentials. I sold the ring at a pawn shop and rented a car. I changed my number. I created an email with the screenshots of their affair and videos of colleagues and friends, exposing the kind of disgusting monsters. They do not deserve any kind of closure from me. I wasn't there for the fallout. I deleted my social media and changed my number to get a fresh start. The only person I was in contact with was Mike, but I told him not to give me any updates. The days following were hard. I used to have bad dreams about my girlfriend and dad mocking me that they fooled me. Sometimes I would have this urge to call my dad and scream at him and ask why. Why did he do it? But I know he would just give me some BS excuse. I was so depressed that most of the time I would start thinking about killing myself. It took me years of therapy to get over the pain, but I never really got over it. I never fell in love again. I was always curious to know what my dad was up to, but I knew this would open a wound. But fate had a different plan for me. One day I was celebrating my promotion at a bar with some colleagues. There I met a woman, Annie, 38F, who was eyeing me the whole time. She was gorgeous like Monica Bellucci. We talked with each other all night and I took her to my place. I abstained from dating for a long time, but I really had fun with her. It was amazing to say the least. Later we exchanged numbers and started dating. One day when we were watching a movie, I saw a message pop up on my screen. The picture shocked me. It was my father hugging the woman I was with. I was startled but wanted to know more. So, I dug a little. Apparently, my father got married a few years after I left. Curiosity got the best of me and I called my friend Mike. He was really happy to hear from me, but I wasted no time and asked what happened after I left. Well, apparently, after I exposed their affair, my ex and dad became social pariahs. My ex lost a bunch of her friends. At one party, her best friend slapped her because she thought her father was having an affair with her. My dad had a reputation of being a well-respected man in our community, but all his friends dropped him after that. Mike also told me my ex and my dad tried to work things out, but my dad and my ex would fight with each other a lot, with my dad blaming her for me leaving him. This got so bad that my ex left town and went to live with her mom. Soon after, my dad left town too because he couldn't handle the criticism. He left and a few years later got married to Annie. I am sure he never told Annie the whole truth. Because what woman would want to be with a man who betrayed his own son? I felt disgusted that I slept with a married woman, but a part of me felt like this is the perfect revenge on my dad for betraying me almost 10 years ago. I am not sure whether I should confront her or continue our affair as it is. Update. It's been a while since my last update. I am very ashamed to say that I didn't stop the affair with my stepmother. The thought of getting revenge on my father has been running inside my brain for a long time. Now God has given me a chance. Besides, Annie and I had such a beautiful time together. She works from home, so it gives her flexibility. As far as I know, she always comes to live by my house whenever my dad is out of town. She doesn't know that I know she has a husband and that her husband is in fact my dad. I had long talks with her. I shared my deepest secret with her about why I left and my history with my father. To no one's shock, she was very disgusted. She kept repeating the words, "How can a father do that to his own child?" At one point I got tired of this drama. And NGL, I started to fall for her as well, which makes this even more complicated. So one day when she came to my place and sat her down and told her everything. She was shocked at first and then got angry that I used her to get revenge on my father. I told her she was no better at cheating on her husband. We argued a lot and then she stormed off. I wish I could say it ends here, but she came to my house a couple of times and we ended up having sex. But for a few days, she has been radio silent. I thought it was over until one day I got an email from my father. He wrote something like, "I know Annie has been having an affair. I saw the texts and the videos. Geez, son, grow up. I get it that you are upset. I am sorry that I had an affair with Maya. I know I shouldn't have. But I was lonely. She came onto me and I couldn't stop her. Every day I regret that. I miss you every day. I always thought that someday we will make up for it. We do not need to fight over a bitch that meant nothing to both you and me, but please don't take Annie away from me. I get it. I am your culprit and I have suffered a lot because of what I have done. I lost my only son and the respect of a lot of people. I can't take it anymore. Annie was the only one who kept me sane for a long time. I love her. Please do not destroy what I have just built. I am willing to forgive you if you please just stop contacting her. I cannot believe that man. He didn't think about me while he was fucking my then girlfriend. Why should I care about him? He is nothing to me. He is just my girlfriend's husband. A part of me wants to hurt him even more. I know I can. Because my one message will bring Annie to me. Story 11. I caught my wife having an affair with her brother. I've been married to my soon-to-be ex-wife for 5 years, but I have been dating her for the past 8 and I never would have thought that something this crazy would happen to me. So my wife, 43 female, and I, 44 male, have been together and inseparable for as long as I know. We met at a bar after her night shift as a nurse and we instantly clicked. My wife hasn't been able to get pregnant since she has a condition called endometriosis, which she's had for her whole life. She has always been really insecure of it and has told me to leave her multiple times since I've always wanted a big family, but it didn't matter to me. This past spring has been very revealing of this whole situation and I just can't believe that she's done this to me. My wife has a brother, 38 male, and me and him both got along pretty well and bonded over our love for fishing and hunting. He had his own wife and kids, and I just don't understand why he had to ruin mine. I'm a constructor and I took a job out of the city that would have taken 3 weeks, then I'd be able to go home. My wife was fine with it, and even though she'd usually come with me for these long trips, she wanted to stay home and take care of the dogs, which seems pretty normal. I left for my job, but about 2 days into my trip, I had realized that I forgot my meds and I had to go back, which was alright and wouldn't disturb any of the work. I didn't tell my wife that I was coming back because I wanted to surprise her. I got home around 11 p.m., and I was surprised to see her brother's car in the driveway, since he was supposed to be at the hospital with his wife who was in labor, but maybe he had forgotten something from our last meetup. So I went in and the lights were off, so my wife was probably asleep in our room, but I didn't see her brother, which was odd, but maybe he came and crashed in the guest room. I went to my room and I saw the two together in bed. Their clothes were on the floor, a bottle of wine was on the coffee table, and the picture of us at our wedding was face down on the side table along with her ring next to it. This was insane, and so I immediately started yelling at the two. My wife and her lover woke up and started rummaging around looking for their clothes, which were just scattered all over. She tried to apologize and wanted to talk to me, but I was in disbelief. My brother-in-law was putting on his shorts and tried to calm me down, but that just made it worse, so I took my dogs and booked a room at a motel in town. My wife was blowing up my phone with apologies and asking for forgiveness, but when I finally responded, it was of me demanding a divorce. Update. I've been talking to my lawyer and it's settled. I'm taking the house, the car, and the dogs, and she'll get half of the money in the bank account. She'll be staying with her ancestral family a couple states west, and she won't be any of my problem. I don't know when I'll start dating again or if I ever will because of my brand new trust issues from that previous event, but I'll go where the future takes me. Update again. As of now, I am a single man. The divorce isn't fully complete, but I'm never going to see that woman ever again. It's upsetting that she's getting half my hard-earned cash, but at least I'm keeping the money-consuming dogs. I'm not alone in this, although, since her brother did have a wife and kids, we've been supporting each other throughout this whole situation. I'm on dating apps and I met this young woman. She's great. My mom thinks it's a bit early for me to be dating again, but I'm sure the woman is still boning her brother, so why don't I get in on some action too? That's all for now, but I might update later. Story 12. I had a secret affair at work, which I regret to this day. The story is short, it doesn't have all the details, as I've lost some of my memories. Yes, my brain likes to forget many traumatic moments that I just don't remember. I had an affair at work, just flirting. My boyfriend and I were in different cities. It was difficult to maintain a relationship. Before that I was depressed, my mother died in my arms from brain cancer, and my father drank hopelessly and drinks to this day. He has no job, and all his accounts are blocked because of loans in millions of rubles, and in no way do I justify myself for such an immoral act as flirting on the side. I still blame myself for it. My boyfriend is not perfect like the rest of us, but I love him very much. The story is about how I flirted with my boss. He made strange gestures in my direction more than once, and everyone in the team tried to impose a relationship on him, saying that it would be better this way. And at some point I couldn't stand it. I fell for advertising a better life. It was the biggest mistake of my life. I've never cheated on my soulmates before. On the contrary, they cheated on me, and every time I was left with nothing. I wasn't a good partner before. I'm a pathological liar with psychopathic personality traits that I'm still being treated for. In addition, my father raped my mother, which is why she wanted to have an abortion while pregnant with me. All my childhood, I was told that I had to die. I'm a walking Murphy's Law, clumsy in all walks of life. But let's not talk about it. I am a cook with no education. I work in the kitchen. I have decent work experience. Initially, I got a job as a waitress in a restaurant, worked for 5 months, and I was invited to the kitchen. It was the guy, let's call him Joe. Joe said that I have talent, and that it just needs to be developed. I admit I'm still clumsy to this day, but whatever experience I've had. And so they began to take me to the kitchen with a higher load per hour. Joe took over my training, and at first I considered him my older brother. After all, he was constantly protecting me and helping me with my work, but then everything changed. His conversations with me became more intimate. And I remind you that I already had a relationship, but on the internet. At first, I pushed him away from me, but then his work colleagues joined in and began to put pressure on me that allegedly flirting did not count, and besides, your boyfriend is still thousands of kilometers away from you. And I do not know what motivated me then. Maybe the situation in my house was due to a drunken father who began to molest me after my mother's death, maybe because of something else. But I fell for it, started flirting back, I swear, now I hate even thinking about it. We corresponded and flirted. My boyfriend noticed a change in my behavior. I became cold and distant. And after a while, he burned me for texting while we were streaming on Discord how to draw. We are two self-taught artists. I couldn't justify my words. I said it was just a friend from work. I already said that I am a pathological liar and I tell the truth with clenched teeth. He believed me. And at some point I wanted to end everything without consequences for everyone. Initially I wanted to break up with both that guy and the dude who was flirting with me, as my condition was getting worse and worse from these games with hiding everything. I texted the guy everything I wanted and blocked him, which made it even worse. He didn't know that I was flirting with Joe, and he was shocked by the information that appeared in front of his eyes. He wasn't mad at me. We talked about it. I burst into tears for the first time in 2 years. After all, even at my mother's funeral, I couldn't cry. He forgave me, and we agreed that I would quit this job and move to his city. I agreed because everything that was happening seemed like an impassable hell to me. At work, my departure was perceived negatively and they began to humiliate me in every possible way. Everyone thought that I would stay with them. But I signed a letter of resignation and left this place. Now I live with my boyfriend, and every day I look at him, and it really hurts me that I did such a terrible thing. Even if he forgives me, I will never forgive myself for this act. At the moment, everything is fine with us. I am working at a new job where I have no connections with colleagues, since I have learned my lesson. But everything that has happened is eating me up from the inside. Maybe it makes sense to see a doctor. I promised myself that I would make the life of my boyfriend and future husband perfect. I would work 17 hours, at least 18. But I will atone for my sin. Am I such a creature that I've ever done this? Sorry. I just needed to talk it out. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give a like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, provoke, and connect us. Thank you.